Welcome, everyone, to Dead Talk Live. Today we have a special guest with us, Jill Larson from The Taking of Deborah Logan, and more recently, The Manor, which just came out last month. Jill, thank you for being our guest. How are you doing?
I'm very well and delighted to be here.
Thank you for being our guest. So let's get right to it. Last month, your latest movie, The Manor, released on Amazon Prime, if I'm correct. Uh, it deals with a woman who suffers a stroke, gets put into a home, and malevolent forces seem to happen at the hospital. We're not going to give away any spoilers. So you play the character of Trish in the movie. What can you tell us about your character?
Uh, well, without giving away any spoilers, um, Trish is someone who has lived at the manor for a long time. She lost her husband and ended up here. It's a beautiful location. I share a room with another woman, um, played by Fran Bennett, and we have a room that I would love to live in. It's so beautiful, and then a new resident arrives, and that's Barbara Hershey, and we befriend her, and she becomes part of our little cadre of residents at the manor.
And we can reveal this because it's in the synopsis. Barbara Hershey suffers a stroke, and that's
Right.
why she's admitted into the manor. Now, before we get more into the movie, there's a lot of undertone in the manor about the abuses that the elderly face that does not get the attention it deserves nowadays. What are your feelings on that aspect of the movie?
Well, I have a friend who worked in a place like the manor was, and he was there to bring activities. He was an artist and so forth, and to bring quality of life issues to the residents. He After I don't know how many months, he had to leave because he said he couldn't bear to
Yeah.
see what some of the circumstances were, which is not to say that every facility is like that. And it's not to say that some of it may be necessary. Um, you know, so I don't want to dramatize it, but I think it's very real. The writer and director Axel Carolyn is from Brussels, and she wrote this movie because she had watched both her grandfather and then her father move into facilities like this and just take a nosedive,
Yeah.
decline so quickly, and so that's one thing that sort of triggered her thinking about this location and this idea for the movie. I think the other fact is that it just truly taps into everyone's worst fear.
Exactly.
To think that slowly but surely you lose your agency, you lose your ability to. Well, I have a friend who was just told she can't drive anymore. She has some dementia. You can't do this. So, we'll take your medications for you and we'll just give them to you when it's time. So you're always, it's like they're shutting down the brain and so forth. It's a terrifying thought in and of itself. I
It
mean,
is.
that's a horror movie right there.
You lose your self identity and any control
Exactly.
that you have over your life, and someone else takes over that control. And
That's right.
I'm glad that Axel took used that undertone and put it into this horror suspense film. What One of the things that I think make this movie so great is that undertone mixed in with horror, and we see horror suspense uh, be the gateway for a lot of social commentary. Having done your fair share of horror, would you agree with that statement?
Definitely, definitely. I did not have an appetite for horror. I'd never seen a horror movie when I was cast in Deborah Logan. Um, and I was trepidatious about the whole undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
While we were shooting, I thought, Jill, you have to at least see one of these kinds of films. And so one night in my hotel room, I started to watch Rosemary's Baby. And we got about a quarter of the way in or something. And then there were those creatures in the basement. It was like, that's it. I have to stop. It was too scary for me. It's a little easier when you're on the creating end of it, but yeah, I think definitely the draw and the hook of horror movies. Well, there are two. One is just the kind of thrill of being scared, like a roller coaster or something. And the other is that it really does hook into our own psychic fears. Yeah. And
absolutely.
So yeah, it's often based in something that is very real.
Absolutely. Now, in the Manor, your co-stars are, like you mentioned, Barbara Hershey, Bruce Davison, great actors. Was this the first time you got to work with both of them?
It is, yeah.
Now,
Yeah, it
both
was
of them are,
wonderful.
like I said, wonderful actors. What was your experience working with Barbara and Bruce?
Um, First of all, they're just so open and responsive and eager to participate, if you will. Barbara had been working I think she'd been shooting for a week before we came on set. So already there's a different dynamic. She already knows everybody and so forth. So, but I don't even think it took us a whole day to sort of connect. And they're both wonderful. His first the first movie he ever did when he was 19 was with Barbara Hershey.
Wow.
And he had not seen her since, is my recollection.
Wow.
But he talked about how much he learned from her at that time because she was more experienced. Even, they were both pretty young, and so between takes and stuff, oh gosh, they just had such fabulous stories to recount about Scorsese, about Brando, about this one and that one, and so that made it really fun too. And they're both wonderful actors, so
absolutely,
you have a lot to work with when you have the privilege of working with either of them.
Absolutely. Now let's go to the writer and director, Axel Carolyn. You said she used her personal experience to pen this script and bring it to the screen. What was it like working for her as a director? Was she very easy? Did she give you guys, all of you, some leeway? Was she open to your creative input when it came to certain scenes?
Um, yes, I think so. But she also had a very clear vision of what she was doing. So, I mean, one sort of amusing example, I guess, is that scene at the end where Barbara Hershey and her grandson discover us around the fire. And I, as an actress, I was like, this is the climactic scene. It's got to be this. Well, I don't know. What are we going to say? How are we dressed? What are we wearing? Are we dancing? If so, what's the dance? So I was very focused on this because I felt sort of personally responsible for, boom, making this climactic moment. And she said, no, I think it'll be fine. And I didn't know what she was talking about, but she never really dealt with it much. And then it was like the day before we were going to shoot that scene, and And she said, no, it's just like your old friends out around a fire, and it's very casual. I thought, casual? How could it be casual? So, but when we got out there that night, and in fact, even Fran Bennett, who played my roommate, I kept saying to her, how are we going to do this? And she said, they'll tell us when we get there. So anyway, and that's indeed what happened. And
do you find yourself a lot doing that a lot with your roles? Maybe stressing about how the director wants it, and you may overthink it a little bit.
Well, I suppose you could say that. I am an actress who does a lot of preparation, a lot of exploration, and about the physicality of a character, about the backstory of why is she here and what is she thinking in the moment, especially with a character like this that is important, but supportive.
Yes.
So it's not a character that has a wide emotional arc. It's a character that is there for a purpose. And so that can end up being kind of one-dimensional and not that interesting if you don't bring your own history and richness to it.
Yeah.
So, so in this particular case, yeah, it kind of, bit me in the butt, but mostly that's just how I work, and that's what makes it most fun for me also.
And we see it. You bring such enthusiasm and excitement, and it has to. My next question, because you brought up physicality, is Deborah Logan. Now, Act 3 of Deborah Logan has you doing a lot of physical activity, a lot of physical stuff. Well, first question, was that all you, or did they use a stunt double?
They had a stunt double, but when it came time to actually do it, it just seemed kind of natural for me to do it, falling out of the hospital bed and things like that. And I'm a very physical person anyway, just by nature. I'm very sort of physically demonstrative and so forth. So I wanted to do it. The only place we got into trouble was at the very end, and where they wanted me to do the thing. Well, you didn't see it. It ended up not being in the film, but we were trying to create this special effect. And with a low budget, the ideas, they just didn't work out. And so we were fortunate to, after we were done shooting, to get a chance to do some green screen and so forth work that made that last climactic moment more
scary.
Realistic.
That's scary. It was scary.
That's right.
Deborah Logan was a really scary movie. Now, obviously, when you're acting in it, it's fun. You're letting your creative side run wild.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when you saw the finished product, the taking of Deborah Logan? Did it scare you?
Well, no, it didn't scare me. I was just interested in seeing all the different shots that we had done and everything, to see how they worked out. And some of it was almost entirely improvised, which I don't get an opportunity to do that very often. So it was a little bit scary and really fun. And working with Anne Ramsey, who has a long history in improv, she's very skilled at it. And so that made it easier and better, I think, also. But so what was your question? I'm sorry.
About basically, the physicality. And I wanted to also ask you, Deborah Logan is a woman who everyone thinks is undergoing dementia, and she probably is. It's never really clearly defined, but at the same time, she's also being spiritually taken over. What kind of preparation did you do as an actress to portray somebody who is suffering the onset of dementia, but at the same time is facing spiritual possession?
Well, the dementia part, my mother had Alzheimer's in her last couple of years, so I got to see some of that. I think that dementia is something where you're kind of moving along and think everything's fine and you're doing well, and then your mind is gone and you don't know where you are, and
it's absolutely scary,
terrifying, really terrifying. So there's that element, and then there is I'm feeling like the possession. The possession also, I think, well, it's two things. One is, I think anyone who, I think we all have our own inner demons. We all have our things that we're afraid of. We all have things that sometimes you feel like you're hearing a voice in your mind, and it's your own psyche probably, but it can send you on quite a trip.
Yeah.
And so there's that element, and then there's the remarkably freeing aspect. I mean, I don't know that I'll have another time when I get to leap up on a kitchen counter and start throwing things out of the cupboard and have like a temper tantrum, and to be that free, and then to have the director, to see the director after they go cut, standing behind the monitor like this with his turtleneck up over his mouth going, oh. It's just really fun.
It sounds like you had a lot of fun. Now,
yes.
We got to talk about, you have spent a large majority of your career on doing soap operas.
Yes.
I remember you on All My Children. Now, how vital, and in between the soap operas, you were doing films as well. And then you would return. You appeared on many different soap operas. Do soap operas hold a special place in your heart?
Absolutely.
Tell us about
Absolutely. I mean, even today, even though, All My Children has been gone for over a decade, I think of what a blessing was dropped into my lap when I entered that world. Again, I didn't really know anything about the soap opera world. I had really been a theater actress for the first 20 years of my career. And so it was like walking into a different world. And I came to appreciate, first of all, what hard work it is to produce, 48 minutes of programming every single day of the year. The machinery that it takes to write the scripts, to do all the stuff. And then the impact that it has on your audience is huge. I didn't understand that initially. And to meet people women who would say, I've watched since I was a child, and now I watch with my grandmother and my mother. And sometimes when my daughter's around, she watches too. And we have this whole, it's almost like a special language, because they're all sharing these stories and these feelings together. And I see it kind of like when, men who are big sports fans and they have their own language. Oh, what did the Jets do today? Or whatever. And I think the soap operas provided that on an emotional level primarily for women, but many
I
men
was one
were,
of them. I grew up
yeah,
watching soap operas.
yeah,
Now, when
exactly.
you would go, because like I said, you did films in between your soap opera stints, was it a shock going from a soap opera set onto a film set that's done at a completely different pace?
Yes, yeah. It's taken me a long time, and I still don't feel like I've completely um, tackled it. But the thing about a soap opera is that, by and large, you know all the actors, you know the characters they play, you know the relationships that those characters have, you know all the sets, you know all the locations. So you walk on, and maybe you haven't had more than read through it once as a rehearsal, but you have all the information of all of your associates
Mm-hmm.
and the relationships. Michael Knight, my son, this one, my daughter-in-law, my husband. And so you kind of, it's another kind of improv in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but on a film you don't have that, and unless you are a lead, or a predominant character, you often come on in the middle. You don't know anybody. You don't know, there's no larger arc of rehearsal or anything. You come on and they kind of say, okay, stand here and then move there. Okay, action. And so it's, I can't articulate it more clearly than that, but you have to be performance ready. Well, you in both formats you do. But am I talking too long? I'm aware of
No,
our time.
no,
Oh,
this is
okay.
fascinating.
You have to be camera ready and performance ready in either form, but you're talking for the first time. You're talking intimately to
Mm-hmm.
someone you just met 20 minutes ago.
Yeah,
And so you don't have the same relationship. You don't have the same foundation. You don't have the sort of connection that you do when you've worked with somebody for even 6 weeks. But when
exactly.
you've worked with them for 10, or in my case, 20 years, you have intimate knowledge of that person on many levels.
Now, while you were doing, let's say, All My Children, were you at all worried or afraid in your career that you would be doing soap operas for the rest of your career? Which didn't work out that way. You've done plenty of films. You've been lucky to do the soap opera world, the film world, have done other television as well. You have done all the entire spectrum. Do you consider yourself lucky? Were you worried that you, when you became such a popular soap opera actress, that that's all you would be doing in your career?
When I was offered the role of Opal on All My Children, they offered me a 4-year contract. And I said, oh my God, oh no, oh no, I would never play the same character for 4 years. And so we whittled it down to 2 years. But I laugh at that now because, of course, I ended up playing the same character for 22 years.
Exactly.
So, like I said, once I became a part of it, I was profoundly grateful. I was grateful, having come from the theater where you're always something of an outsider. You're always working at night and on the weekends. You can't go to dinner parties. You can't take a vacation. You can't do any of those things that normal people, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
do. And so the soap opera offered a more regulated schedule, and that was a welcome, and that enabled me to become a mother and have a regular paycheck that I could count on, and be able to take a vacation for 2 weeks if I, and so forth. So that gave me a kind of foundation in my life that up until then I had had a very nomadic life,
Okay.
which was wonderful also.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm thrilled that I had that time. but so this is that was very different. And so so at some point, they call it golden handcuffs, and I guess it's true that it's mostly such a great experience that you don't want to really leave. And the other thing is that oftentimes people would leave to go, for greener pastures, and they wouldn't be able to break in. Mm-hmm. And it is hard once you are really identified. I mean, even someone like Jennifer Aniston, she's done some wonderful things since then, but it's always hard to get past.
She's Rachel from Friends.
She's Rachel from Friends. Mm-hmm. And we love her so dearly as Rachel from Friends that it's hard to see her in other things.
It is.
And so that is a trap. And actors are very much aware of it. And some have the courage to leave, and they manage to go on and do well. Michael B. Jordan is one.
Absolutely.
And so yes, there are plenty who do go on. But for those who do, there are Kevin Bacon, started in soap. So yes, there are those who do go on and build real careers. There are others who just can't seem to get in the door as anything other than those characters they were so famous for.
There are no guarantees in the entertainment industry, none whatsoever. No. In the final moments that we have, going back to the Manor, it takes place at a rehab home facility. Where was the actual film shot?
It's a gorgeous old mansion on the University of Southern California campus.
Nice.
And it was really, really beautiful, really fun to work in there.
So that's a perfect setting to portray, that setting. How long did shooting take? Was it like a 3-4 week thing, or did it take a couple of months?
No, I think it was probably about a month's worth. I was there. I worked for if I think about 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
And,
and before we go, Jill, I have to ask you, like I said, you have done the spectrum from soaps, television, movies. What particular project is the nearest and dearest in your heart? Is it All My Children?
I would be hard pressed to say. I was just thinking today of when I got to do Agnes of God on stage, or when I got to play Diana Vreeland in a one-woman show, or doing Deborah Logan, something that was so far out of my purview, what I assumed, myself to have. That was thrilling, and so was this. It was the Manor in a different way. So
how does it feel?
Character.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask you, how does it feel when you get approached and people reference you from Deborah Logan? Is that something you're very proud of?
It's funny because for so many years I was always identified as Opal. And then when Deborah Logan came out, I suddenly had a whole other audience. And so one day I was on the subway and I hear these Latina girls, high school girls talking, and they're all saying, oh yeah, she had Alzheimer's or something. And they're talking about me and Deborah Logan, and I just had to laugh. It was just so funny. But I think one of the funniest things was my daughter was in college at the time, and we were in a Denny's I was visiting her at school, and this kid came over and he was quaking. He was so scared. She said, are you her? Oh my God. And he like flipped out. The whole restaurant was looking at us, and he said, we were just driving here, and I said to my friend, I said, drive fast past the forest. I don't want to see Deborah Logan. So that was kind of wonderful, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can have that kind of effect on an audience. And it was. Deborah Logan was an amazing movie. It was scary. You did a fantastic job. Jill, we're
Well,
out of
thank
time. I want to thank you so much for coming on here. These 30 minutes just flew by and sharing some of your wonderful
you.
stories with us. Any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
Um, no, I guess just that I feel very lucky and on the eve of Thanksgiving, blessed
Yes.
to have had the opportunities that I have and to have worked with the marvelous people that I've worked with.
You
So,
have a wonderful career and you
yeah,
should be very proud. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our
yeah.
audience who's watching this live and who will watch this later on archived. Again,
All
thank you to
right.
Jill Larson as our guest. Until next time, guys, stay safe. And on behalf of Jill and myself, stay walking. Till next time, bye
That's
bye.
right. All right. Bye.